Welcome to today's show. Before we get started, let me just say thank you for tuning in and ask you to do me a big solid by clicking the follow or subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Also, visit the website at secondlookcinema.net, where you can access transcripts of each episode and even submit an idea for a film to cover in a future episode. Now, onto the show. The Secret of NIMH, the 1982 animated film that tricked unsuspecting children into watching a full-blown horror movie disguised as a cute tale about a brave little mouse. You'd think you were in for a heartwarming adventure. Nope. Instead, you get animal experimentation, power-hungry murder rats, and an owl so terrifying he makes horror movie villains look like cuddly stuffed animals. The story follows Mrs. Brisby, a widowed mouse mom who just wants to move her house before the evil farmer's plow turns her family into a pancake. But because life is cruel, she has to deal with an underground society of super intelligent, genetically modified rats who talk like Shakespearean actors and have political drama more intense than a Game of Thrones episode. There's also a magic amulet, because why not? Along the way, she meets Nicodemus, an ancient glowing rat wizard with an ominous voice, and Jenner, a deranged, mustache-twirling villain who is so evil he literally stabs his own kind just for fun. Oh, and let's not forget the Great Owl, who is basically a giant skeletal nightmare factory that casually eats mice but for some reason decides Mrs. Brisby is cool enough to live. And she was. Despite all the existential terror, The Secret of NIMH is beautifully animated, wildly imaginative, and weirdly traumatizing in the best way possible. It's the movie that made an entire generation of kids afraid of science labs, crows, and moving day. Thanks, Don Bluth. Here are 5 film facts about the making of The Secret of NIMH. Fact 1. Don Bluth and his rebellion against Disney. Bluth, along with several Disney animators, left the company in 1979 to form their own studio. The Secret of NIMH was their first feature film, created as a response to what they saw as Disney's declining quality. Bluth wanted to bring back the rich animation and darker storytelling of earlier Disney classics, which is why NIMH looks so detailed and has such an intense, eerie tone. Fact 2. Insanely detailed animation. The film was made using over 100,000 hand-drawn cells, with a level of detail that was rare for animated films at the time. Particularly, the glowing eyes of the Great Owl and the amulet's magical energy were all done by hand, no computers. This extra effort made the animation stand out, but also contributed to delays and budget constraints. Fact 3. The Great Owl was voiced by a horror icon. The terrifying Great Owl was voiced by John Carradine, a legendary horror movie actor known for appearing in dozens of classic horror films, including The House of Frankenstein and The Howling.
Come inside or go away.
His deep, menacing voice helped make the character one of the scariest talking owls in animation history. Fact 4. The mysterious magic amulet wasn't in the original book. In the original novel, Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH by Robert C. O'Brien, there was no magical amulet. The studio added it to give the film a more dramatic and fantastical element, even though it's never really explained how or why it works. Some fans love it, while others feel it takes away from the more grounded sci-fi elements of the story. Fact 5. It went up against E.T. and got crushed. Unfortunately, The Secret of NIMH was released in the summer of 1982, right when E.T. the Extraterrestrial was dominating the box office. John Carpenter's The Thing, anyone? With little marketing and tough competition, NIMH struggled financially during its initial run. However, it gained a massive cult following over the years, proving that quality animation and storytelling can stand the test of time. In a time where Disney was known as the only real animation studio making motion pictures, in walks Don Bluth with a film that, as a young boy, drew me in with its dark and cynical images and story. As a future horror nerd, this is one heck of an animated start. There's so much going on screen and in the background, some only alluded to in the dialogue, that you can't help but watch it again. There's a creepiness, an unsettling feeling from roughly 10 minutes in until the credits at the end that keeps you glued. The owl. Oh, the owl. The single most creepy thing in the entire film. The cobwebs look like actual, real-life cobwebs. The owl itself is something straight out of a James Wan film. The very thought of this scene, even upon re-watching, still confirms my feelings as a young kid. The owl is freaking creepy, and at no point do I think Mrs. Brisby isn't going to be devoured by this talking hulk of a bird. Even the elements designed to lighten up the story with some comic relief can do little to puncture the thick darkness that surrounds the characters. Peril has never been so darkly displayed in animation like this. At first glance, The Secret of NIMH appears to be a traditional animated children's movie. The film follows Mrs. Brisby, a timid field mouse, as she seeks the help of genetically enhanced rats to save her sick son from an impending disaster. However, beneath its surface, The Secret of NIMH is deeply rooted in horror. The film's eerie atmosphere, disturbing themes of scientific experimentation, and unsettling depictions of death and violence align it more with the horror genre than typical family-friendly animation. With its dark visuals, menacing antagonists, and existential dread, The Secret of NIMH stands as one of the most haunting animated films ever made. One of the most terrifying aspects of The Secret of NIMH is its portrayal of animal experimentation. The film reveals that the intelligent rats, along with Mrs. Brisby's deceased husband Jonathan, were subjects of cruel laboratory experiments at the hands of the National Institute of Mental Health, or NIMH. These rodents were captured, caged, and injected with mysterious substances that altered their intelligence and physical abilities. The horror of this revelation lies in its basis in real-world fears of scientific overreach. The rats endure painful, traumatic procedures, an experience reminiscent of body horror films in which characters are grotesquely transformed against their will. The idea that helpless creatures are manipulated for scientific gain taps into the same unsettling fears explored in films like The Island of Dr. Moreau or Frankenstein. The movie never explicitly shows the worst of the experiments, but the implications, forced captivity, suffering, and unnatural changes, are deeply disturbing, especially when viewed through an adult lens. Unlike most animated films of its time, The Secret of NIMH creates an overwhelming sense of dread through its art direction and music. The film's color palette is dominated by dark, muted tones, with many scenes shrouded in shadows. The underground layer of the rats is an eerie space filled with glowing eyes and flickering torches, evoking a gothic horror setting. Even the farm where Mrs. Brisby and her children live is depicted as a dangerous world where threats lurk around every corner. The film's use of music further enhances its horror elements. The legendary Jerry Goldsmith's score is haunting, filled with the ominous choral voices and eerie melodies that heighten the tension. Every moment feels saturated with an underlying unease, making even quiet scenes feel suspenseful. This pervasive atmosphere of fear is characteristic of horror films, which rely on mood and sound design to create psychological unease. No horror film is complete without terrifying antagonists, and The Secret of NIMH delivers on this front. The Great Owl, one of the most visually unsettling characters in the film, embodies pure nightmare fuel. When Mrs. Brisby seeks his wisdom, she enters his dark, cobweb-filled tree, where bones litter the ground, a clear indication of his deadly nature. The owl's glowing eyes, deep, rasping voice, and sudden, jerky movements make him one of the most fearsome figures in animation. Despite ultimately aiding Mrs. Brisby, he exudes an aura of death, reinforcing the film's horror roots. Jenner, the film's primary antagonist, is another embodiment of horror. As a power-hungry rat who seeks to overthrow the wise Nicodemus, Jenner embodies classic villain archetypes found in gothic horror and psychological thrillers. His sinister demeanor, cruel manipulation, and even violent murder of Nicodemus are shockingly brutal for an animated film. The final confrontation, where he engages in a bloody sword fight, ends with his gruesome impalement, an unusually graphic moment for a children's movie. Jenner's lust for power and willingness to kill for it adds a deeply unsettling human horror element to the film. Death looms over The Secret of NIMH, making it far darker than most animated films of its era. The story begins with the revelation that Jonathan Brisby has already died in an attempt to help the rats escape NIMH, setting a somber tone. Mrs. Brisby's quest is also motivated by the immediate danger that her sick son, Timothy, will not survive if their home is destroyed by the farmer's plow. The threat of death is not abstract. It's a constant, inescapable reality that Mrs. Brisby and the other animals must face. One of the most chilling moments is Nicodemus's recounting of the rats' escape from NIMH. He describes how many of them perished during their attempt to flee, reinforcing the film's theme that survival often comes at a great cost. The depiction of death is not sanitized or softened for younger audiences. Rather, it's treated with a level of seriousness that aligns it with horror narratives where characters must confront their mortality. At its core, The Secret of NIMH taps into universal fears: fear of the unknown, fear of being powerless, and fear of death. Mrs. Brisby, a small and timid mouse, is thrust into a terrifying world where she must face threats far greater than herself. Her journey is filled with moments of dread, from sneaking into a human house where a monstrous cat lurks, to being imprisoned and nearly killed by Jenner. This sense of powerlessness is a hallmark of horror films. Mrs. Brisby's struggle mirrors that of a horror protagonist, desperately trying to survive against the insurmountable odds. Even when she's given a magical amulet that grants her power, it's not through brute force that she triumphs, but through sheer willpower, a theme often found in supernatural horror films. While The Secret of NIMH is often categorized as a fantasy or adventure film, its heart beats with the tension and terror of horror. From its grotesque depictions of scientific experimentations to its oppressive atmosphere and ever-present themes of death and powerlessness. The film evokes a deep sense of unease. Its chilling villains, eerie soundtrack, and gothic imagery further cement its place as one of the most unsettling animated films ever made. Beneath its surface-level story of survival and heroism, The Secret of NIMH is a horror film in disguise, one that continues to haunt audiences decades after its release. To paraphrase Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, I bet you'll never look at rats the same way again. After all is said and done, parents who love their horror cinema are always looking for a safe gateway to introduce their kids to something they love. While some parents may be okay with letting them stream the latest Jason, Freddy, or Michael Myers films, those of us that wish to introduce our love of this genre can feel at ease by sitting down with this wonderful animated feature. It's got just the right amount of blood, scares, and peril to entertain the whole family and maybe, just maybe, have the kids knock on your door in the middle of the night and ask to sleep with you. As teenagers, we went to horror films hoping that the scares would draw us and our dates closer to one another in the glow of that big screen and in the middle of the dark. As parents, there's something comforting about having our kids, who are maybe just a little too big to sleep with mom and dad anymore, crawling into bed with you late at night to ward off a nightmare or two. It may be a cheap trick for a parent to pull, but as tough as it is to watch the terror on screen, it's even tougher to watch your kids grow up sometimes. Thank you for listening today. As always, watch films deeper, listen closer, and search for a deeper meaning than what's on the surface. I'll see you next time.